This is the discontinued 2009 Pac-Man Bonus Fruit Energy Drink. It's got a solid label and it seems promising apart from the expiration date, but I'm still on the fence as to whether or not I should purchase it. Let's take a look at the product features to gain some more insight. Feature number 1. High caffeine energy drink. Just the thing the kids will be looking for in their Pac-Man soda. Feature number 2. Fruit flavored. As the label indicates, the drink contains no actual fruit or fruit juice, so you can get all that tastiness without worrying about any organic substances contaminating it. Feature number 3. Source of vitamin B. According to the first site I found on Google, vitamin B helps your cells grow, along with a myriad of other health benefits. The Pac-Man Bonus Fruit Energy Drink should be a staple in any healthy diet. Feature number 4. Official licensed product. Last but certainly not least, this product feature lets you rest assured that an executive somewhere in the Namco chain of command signed off on printing the Pac-Man logo onto this can. When a product is licensed, it's a telltale sign that they'll be bringing some genuinely high-quality stuff to the table. If you slip up and buy a product that wasn't licensed, you end up with something like 3D Maze Man. Pac-Man is one of the most beloved persons in all of gaming history, and given how well known he is, it's no surprise that other companies would attempt to capitalize on the recognizability with similar off-brand characters such as PacMax, PacMax, and PacMax. Unofficial variants of Pac-Man have been around nearly as long as the game itself. Even Ms. Pac-Man was originally going to be an unlicensed conversion kit called Crazy Auto, before it was pitched to Midway and made into an official sequel. But that was during the Dark Ages, when the way copyright applied to video games hadn't been fully fleshed out yet. Unlicensed computer games based on Pac-Man continued well into the 2000s. Let's take a look at some. First up on our copycat catalog is Fun Pack, released in 1993 by WizardWorks. This is a pack of several arcade-style games, all bundled together on one disc. Love the low-budget 3D render on the cover. All of the included games are simple remakes of other popular titles, with the only meaningful difference being that they came up with new names. For example, Pac-Man is called Chomp, and Tetris is called Emlith. The back of the case is even less subtle, promising games that are, quote, similar to Pac-Man, Asteroids, Breakout, Missile Command, and Tetris, when in fact they're straight-up ports. Presumably this was to avoid copyright issues, but it probably would have been completely useless if it had actually gone to court. Maze games with far more distinction from Pac-Man, such as KC Munchkin, had already gone to court over infringement and lost. The back of the case also says that a game called Jewel Thief is included, but that's incorrect. Instead of that, it just has this game where you squish bugs. Truly false advertising at its worst. There's really not much else to say about Fun Pack because all the included games are more or less identical to the originals. As far as I could find, WizardWorks got away with this release without any litigation. I guess they weren't big enough to attract the ire of Namco, unlike the creators of this game. 3D Maze Man, Adventures in Winter Wonderland. This one was actually the subject of a lawsuit. Can you guess why? As the name suggests, this is a Christmas-themed Pac-Man style game, in 3D. Gameplay-wise, it's very similar to Pacmania, where you get a 3D perspective on the maze and can jump over ghosts. When you finish a stage, it says level clean, which I guess is technically correct since you cleaned up all the oversized peppermints that fill the maze, but I assume they meant to say level clear. The first level is pretty bland gameplay-wise, just a generic Pac-Man type stage, but as you progress through the game, more elements are added in. For example, level 2 introduces slopes and one-way arrow tiles. The arrows are supposed to make it so you can only go through them in one direction, but you can get around this by just jumping over them, so they're essentially pointless. In level 5, there are bridges that you need to cross, which don't open unless you get a key. The little changes like this in between the levels help keep the game fresh as you play through. There's also a save feature to let you resume the game from whatever stage you left on. You get 10 save slots, but given that there are only 10 stages in the game, I don't know why they couldn't have just given you a level select screen instead of making you make your own. All the levels are pretty much the same in terms of appearance, and that's because 3D Maze Man Adventures in Winter Wonderland is actually just a slightly changed variant of an original version that was just called 3D Maze Man. These two games are very similar, except that Winter Wonderland slaps a Santa hat on the yellow protagonist and all the graphics are changed up to fit the holiday spirit. While the original 3D Maze Man had a variety of different level environments, the levels in Winter Wonderland all have the same snowy appearance. For whatever reason, there seem to be way more copies of the Winter Wonderland variant than the original 3D Maze Man. In fact, I couldn't find a copy of the original anywhere at the time of recording this. I guess Christmas imagery just makes things more appealing. Overall, I'd say that this is actually a pretty good game. Perhaps too good for its own good, because when Hasbro found out about it 2 years later, they quickly sued, and the court ruled that E-Games, the publisher, had to pay an expensive settlement of $205,000. This lawsuit set a precedent for what would happen to Pac-Man knockoffs, and after seeing this, the creators of another Pac-Man-inspired game decided to cease distribution, just to be on the safe side. That game was Pac-Pac by Astral Entertainment. For this one, they invested in a cute semi-original design with a floating bow tie to use for the cover and the manual artwork. I guess they decided that this terrifying render which was shown on their official website wouldn't be as appealing on store shelves. Pack Pack opens to a menu with exciting music where you can select a variety of games in the Pack Guy series. The first one listed is Pack Guy Resurrection. You turn it on and bam, you're already dead the second you start the game. Oh, of course, as per the title, Pack Guy has been resurrected. All the Pack Guy games mostly follow the same formula when it comes to gameplay. You're in a maze and you have to get all the dots and then go to the exit. Sometimes the exit is just an ending to the maze, but sometimes something unique happens like a getaway car pulling up for you to drive off in. The game has a sort of random, incohesive story tying it all together, which is explained in the cutscenes. You'll notice that they used the most agonizing stock scream sound effects that they could find for whenever you or an enemy die. At the end of the second level, a clone of you appears who offers to show you the way out. One thing that's annoying is that instead of following the paths, a lot of the enemies just jitter around at random and can stay stuck in the same spot for a long time. This can lead to you getting stuck while you wait for them to move. You do have the option to shoot them, but this is limited to the amount of projectiles that you can pick up in the maze, and once you run out, you're out of luck. Some of the levels make managing your projectiles properly into a sort of puzzle. One thing that isn't very obvious at first is that nearly every level contains a secret invisible passage in one of the walls, which will let you move around outside of the maze and usually give you infinite ammunition. You can get through most of the game just fine without these, but in some levels it's practically a necessity. The main entertainment that this game offers is from the wacky cutscenes and the game's overall ridiculousness. In one level, the Star Wars Cantina theme plays, and all the enemies look like Greedo. The Pack Guy series is sometimes called so bad it's good. The gameplay is far from amazing, but the creativity and the fun the developers obviously had making it really shine through and make it something that's actually enjoyable to play. Brian Quarforth, one of the game's developers, gave some interesting insight into the behind the scenes of Pack Guy in a 2017 interview. The first Pack Guy game was made using Click and Play, software that can allow you to create games without programming. It was just, quote, a roughly slapped together gameplay test, and due to its online success and the success of its sequels, they kept making more. Talking about where the ideas for Pack Guy came from, Mr. Quarforth said, a lot of the random scenarios were born out of the stock assets that came with Click and Play, and later Games Factory and Multimedia Fusion. It was often a case of, hey, we have clip art of a submarine, a bubble animation, and a blub blub sound effect, so let's make an underwater level. They originally never planned to release the game in stores, but they were approached by multiple companies that wanted to give Pack Guy a physical release, so it happened. Some of the mini Pack Guy sequels include Pack Guy Atomic Edition, where Pack Guy's entire neighborhood gets nuked and he goes around destroying everything with a bazooka, Pack Guy Christmas Edition, where it's Christmas, Pack Guy 2, which introduces new types of levels, and Pack Guy 2 Part 2, thusly titled because the devs thought it would be funny to call it that instead of Pack Guy 3, with which I fully agree. The franchise really progressed as it continued, and you could see gameplay elements being built on, fleshed out, and expanded on every time with new features and new creative ideas. This particular disc doesn't include the entire series, because it came out before the Pack Guy franchise had ended. The last thing on the game menu is a cinematic trailer for the then upcoming title, Pacula's Curse. That's right, they called this one Pack Guy 2 Part 3 instead of Pack Guy 4. Next up we have PacMax, the famous maze game in 3 dimensions. This one was published by a company in the Netherlands, so I guess it would have been safer from Namco due to the difficulties of international litigation. The back of the case contains the same blurb in English, Dutch, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian, an effective strategy to maximize the number of countries where the packaging could be reused. The publisher used this exact same technique on their other games too. The disc actually comes with 2 games on it, neither of which are actually called PacMax. The 2 games are Pikmin Saves the Kingdom and Pacmania. You'd expect that the second one would have at least some relation to the actual Pacmania game, but really it's just your typical Pac-Man clone. What's special about this one is that they took the bizarre 3D designs that we keep seeing on the covers and actually put them in the game. You have two modes, Classic and Advanced. In Classic mode, you get this eyeless mouth, which I guess is a pretty faithful take on the original Pac-Man, and in Advanced mode, you also get two eyes and lips, as well as a bunch of random new gameplay elements thrown in. When you finish a level in Advanced mode, the oddly proportioned yellow head spins towards you and makes this awesome face that keeps you motivated to keep going. Reminds me of the free smiley gifs. This game also has an About section, talking about the game and its development. In the third paragraph, it mentions that the developers did their best to, among other things, add original music. Despite this, several of the game's music tracks are simply MIDI files of random popular songs. For example, the music that plays in level 3 is Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. And the music for level 4 is Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. At the bottom of this screen is a link to the developer's now defunct website, which contained a message board about their games. This forum was largely inactive, but occasionally brief moments of intelligent discourse would spark. On July 26, 2002, a user by the name of Art posted a thread to ask a question about Pacmania's gameplay. Who is shit on monitor? To the developer's credit, they always tried their best to respond helpfully to even the most ridiculous forum visitors. Now onto the other game from this disc, Pac-Man Saves the Kingdom, which surprisingly has nothing to do with the Nintendo franchise with the phonetically identical name. Pac-Man Saves the Kingdom begins with a 3D cutscene laying down the lore for us. There's this royal knight of Picland called Rubbus who wants to be the king, so he steals the king's crown. The king's power apparently lies solely within the crown rather than any system of government keeping him in place, so he makes you, Pikmin, go and get it back for him so he can be king again, I guess. Then you get to the gameplay. It's actually pretty interesting. Every level is completely different, and they're skeletons. The game utilizes a moving camera to keep up with the action, but it just keeps rapidly rotating and zooming in and out so much that it's actually headache-inducing for me. There are also items that can hurt you, such as a beer mug. If Pikmin drinks it, he becomes drunk, and the controls are inverted for a short period of time. This doesn't make any sense, because in the official game Junior Pac-Man, you can literally eat entire beer mugs and be just fine. What a lightweight. Lastly, here is PacMax Classics, made by the German company Hemming AG in 2001. Just a few months after this game came out, the CEO of Hemming AG was assassinated, and the company filed for bankruptcy in 2002, when two company executives were criminally charged relating to inconsistencies in the company's financial records. Damn. The disc includes 6 Pac-Man-based games: 3D Man, Crazy Maze, J-Man, Joe-Pac, Pac-World, and Zappman. Unfortunately, I couldn't get J-Man or Joe-Pac to play, so we'll just look at the other 4. 3D Man is an isometric Pac-Man clone with tons of random stuff bouncing around everywhere you look. There's cubes, beach balls, and these weird antenna things. Sometimes you die when you touch this stuff, and sometimes you don't. Next is Pac-World, made by Johannes Walrath. Interestingly, the website listed on this screen is actually still up 20 years later, and on it you can find an updated version of the game that works in modern browsers. Pac-World's main gameplay gimmick is that there are these blocked off areas which you have to open by collecting keys, which appear randomly. It plays a lot slower than normal Pac-Man, which combined with the relatively small mazes makes it pretty easy to avoid losing. In fact, I didn't lose any lives playing through it for the first time, and I ended up just dying on purpose to see what would happen. Another thing that sets Pac-World apart is that it's broken up into different worlds. They each have differently styled graphics, and every 3 levels it switches. You begin with the forest world, then you go through ice, the city, a desert, night, and lastly, fire. Then it just loops back around and repeats. There's not much difference between the worlds apart from the graphics, but there's still a nice way to change things up. Next on the disc is Crazy Maze. There's not much to say about this one, it's just a simple clone of Pac-Man, or really, Ms. Pac-Man, because the levels change every stage and there's a bonus fruit bouncing around for you to collect. The hitbox for collecting a pellet here is really small, which is annoying because you can accidentally turn around too soon and have to go back to get a pellet that you missed, or if you're trying to get a power pellet and you turn around too soon to get the ghosts. Also, sometimes when you start the level, you're moving backwards for like 1 second. That's weird. And finally, the grand finale of this disc, Zappman. I've been saving the best for last here. But before we get into the game itself, let's check out the credits. They start out normally enough, but then it devolves into some jokey nonsense that's probably an inside joke with the programmers. Within all this is a very serious disclaimer. Thousands of bugs were harmed during the making of this entertainment package. Some of those were even killed. The American Humane Association didn't monitor bug action. Scenes depicting violence to bugs were not simulated. Jesus! Somebody call PETA on these monsters! The way the game works is you go through a maze, collecting all the dots and picking up guns and bullets to shoot the other pack creatures. Yeah, you ever wanted to play Pac-Man but you get to murder the ghost and leave pools of blood all over the ground? Well, this is the game for you. Alternatively, have you ever not wanted to play Pac-Man but you get to murder the ghost and leave pools of blood all over the ground? Well, this is the game for you, because there's an option to turn off the blood in the game settings. You can get different types of guns which have varying levels of range and effectiveness, and after you get all the dots, you go to the next level. You can also pick up bombs to attack the ghosts, but it takes several seconds before they actually detonate, so it's pretty much impossible to actually hit anything with them. One of the things mentioned in the credits is that there was actually a story this game was based on. What kind of story would that have been? Zappman by Mikko Nieneman. Once, Pac-Man was so angry that he got a gun and shot everybody. Bang, bang, bang. And then, everyone died. And then he got a bomb and blew everybody up, so they died again. The end.